Welcome, Tulane families, to our last webinar in our Tulane Talks webinar series. And this one is on the topic academics, opportunities, integrity, and support. We are very glad that you've joined us for this very important topic. And I'm really grateful that we have two panelists tonight with us from Newcomb-Tulane College. Kelly Grant, who's the Senior Associate Dean of Student Success and Strategic Initiatives for the college, and she is also Professor of Practice in the A.B. Freeman School of Business. And then our other panelist is Celeste, who is currently serving as the Interim Dean of Newcomb-Tulane College, and she's also a professor in the Political Science Department in the School of Liberal Arts. So I'm going to turn it over to Celeste, who's our first speaker, and I'll rejoin you at the Q&A time.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. As Penny said, my name is Celeste Lay, and I'm the Interim Dean of Newcomb-Tulane College. And I'll just start with a little bit about what Newcomb-Tulane College is, who we are, what we do. As it says here, we are the home of the undergraduate academic experience. What that means in practice is that all undergraduate students at Tulane are Newcomb-Tulane College students, regardless of their major or minor, or all of their majors and minors. They are all Newcomb-Tulane College students, and they begin in Newcomb-Tulane College. We help to welcome students and onboard them throughout the summer before they show up in the fall as first-year students. And then we work with students in a variety of ways, and Kelly and I will be talking about all of those services and supports and opportunities for your children this evening. We work with students all 4 years in lots of different capacities. And so, again, any student, regardless of their major, is an NTC student. And the core of Newcomb-Tulane College is around academics and specifically the core curriculum. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, but every student, again, regardless of their majors or minors, completes the same core curriculum. Now, that doesn't mean they complete the same courses, but they do all complete the same core curriculum. And so I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Newcomb-Tulane College also has a variety of academic support services for all students. And these include academic advising. So every student is assigned an academic advisor. That advisor may change over the course of their time in college, but every student has an assigned advisor that can help them through choosing courses and registering and all kinds of enrollment questions and issues that may come up. Also in this area of support, we have the what's called the Academic Learning and Tutoring Center. This is exactly what it sounds like. They help students with a whole variety of classes that they may be struggling in. And so, if your student calls home and says, I didn't do well on this test, or I'm really worried about this class, the ALTC is a great resource. And they employ a lot of student tutors, so some upperclassmen who are tutoring first or second year students, but they also work closely with professors and TAs to provide sort of supplemental instruction on a variety of classes, particularly those sort of the ones we know about that are sort of routinely very difficult and challenging for some students. In this area, there's also the Office of Student Success, and this team of success coaches works with students on a whole variety of things that I certainly wish had been around when I was a college student. I was a first-gen college student, and I needed all kinds of advice about things like how to manage my time and the difference between sort of high school and college when it comes to studying. A lot of your students have done very well in high school and have succeeded at really high levels. And they're likely to do just fine in college, but there's also a bit of a learning curve in terms of figuring out how to study and how to do things a little bit differently than they may have been used to doing them in high school. And so the team of success coaches works with students on managing stress, managing time, making sure to give themselves some time off to be able to relax and take care of themselves. The Office of Career Services is also an important support system, and we encourage students to come to this office and come to its events early and often. When I was in college, I knew there was an Office of Career Services, but I thought it was something that you did in your very last semester of college, to try to help find a job. And that is something that Career Services assists with, but it's so much more than just helping students find a job at the very end of their careers. The Office of Career Services leads workshops and has talks and has alums that come in to give advice to students that are seeking careers in certain subfields, or they help students write resumes and find internships and a whole host of things. So there's a variety of other kinds of support, but those are sort of the big ones. And then I'll talk a little bit more as well about academic enrichment. The other sort of big part of Newcomb-Tulane College is that we have a variety of offices that offer different opportunities for students that are interested in different kinds of things. And so I will sort of go back a little bit and talk a little bit about the core curriculum. As I said, every student, regardless of their major or minor, completes the same core curriculum. And that means that every student is going to complete a foreign language requirement. They'll all complete a math and science with a lab. There are sort of distribution areas within the core and then proficiency areas within the core. They'll all take 2 writing courses. We want all of our students to be good communicators when they leave Tulane. And they'll also have a variety of classes across the liberal arts and sciences in historical perspectives and creative and aesthetic perspectives, et cetera. And so the academic advisors will sort of help students to ensure that they're on track and that they're taking all of these courses. They can give some advice about, some more popular classes, and but I think if you can encourage your child to sort of branch out. We have thousands of courses every single semester that complete these requirements, and really these should be fun. This is the opportunity for a business student to take an art history class, or a pre-med student to take a design class. And so this really is an opportunity. I always tell students whenever I teach that never again in your life are you going to have the opportunities that you have over the course of 4 years to just dabble a little bit and learn a little bit about something. It's going to be much harder for the rest of their lives to just, take a class on pottery or, all sorts of things. So the core curriculum is an important part of Newcomb-Tulane College, and it's an important part of Tulane in terms of who we want our students to be when they finish. We want them to be good citizens. We want them to be exposed to all of these different subject areas, to be well-rounded, and again, to be good communicators. We also have the Office of Academic Enrichment that works with sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And in this area, there are a variety of opportunities for peer mentorship. So sophomores and juniors, for example, can become peer mentors to first-year students. There's also the opportunity for undergraduate research. Many of your students are likely coming with an interest in doing research with a faculty member, maybe doing some research on their own. And this is an offering at Tulane. And so this office can connect students to faculty if they need to. They can connect students to resources to be able to conduct that research. But we welcome students to come early and often, and let us know sort of what are you interested in, right? And to think about that as broadly as possible. The Center for Global Education works primarily with students that fall in sort of two buckets. One is our students that are going to study abroad, and we are right now about half of all Tulane undergraduate students study abroad in some way over the course of their 4 years. It might be a semester-long program, it might be a short-term summer program. But we certainly encourage students to study abroad and try to make it possible for every student, regardless of financial circumstances or their major. You know, there are a lot of majors where students sort of get in their head that they can't go abroad because it's too rigid, or they have to take a certain set of courses each semester to stay on track. And it is possible for students of every major to go abroad. It might take some planning and some forethought, but that's what the Center for Global Education is there to help students do. We also work with international students in this office and welcome international students to campus, and also a variety of academic support services for international students. I talked a little bit about research opportunities through Enrichment. Another part of Newcomb-Tulane College is the Office of Fellowship Advising. This office is a small but mighty force of a couple of staff members, but they work with students that are interested in applying for nationally competitive scholarships and fellowships. And so many of us have heard of some of the big ones like the Rhodes Scholarship or the Marshall Scholarship. We certainly help students apply for those. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 55 students each year that apply for Fulbright opportunities. These are opportunities to go abroad after graduation with funding from the Fulbright Foundation to be able to go. Some of them will teach English abroad, some of them will do research abroad. There's a variety of different kinds of Fulbrights, but this office has lots of different scholarships and fellowships that it advises students on. It could be science, it could be in the liberal arts, it could be in business. And so if your student is sort of globally minded in any way, interested in, international business or any kind of, thing like that, just, we encourage them to stop by and talk to the staff, because there's probably some kind of postgraduate opportunity that we can find that will go well with their interests. And then lastly, before I turn it over to Kelly, the Office of Academic Integrity is also a part of academic affairs in Newcomb-Tulane College. This office really does oversee the integrity of everything that we do. We want students to do their own work. We want students we want to know that the degrees that they earn and the grades that they earn are meaningful, right? That they have really learned that material and they have demonstrated their capacity in those areas. And that's what this office does. Students serve on the honor board. And so we're definitely interested in, incoming first-year students that may be interested in serving on the honor board. We will train them. And this is a great leadership opportunity for students. And then, in terms of advice here, I would just say, in terms of when students may trip up in this area, it is often because of procrastination. And I talked a little bit earlier about time management and student success and support. What we often see is that, particularly with first-year students, they may not have given themselves enough time to complete an assignment, or they may not have realized just how much time it was going to take to write a paper or to study for a test. And then that can sometimes, especially for students that are used to doing well on everything, that can sometimes lead them to make some poor decisions. And so I would just encourage you to talk to your students about this and, plan ahead. And the biggest thing too here is to communicate with professors. Talk to professors if they need extensions or if they need some support or some tutoring or something like that. That's very common. And it can be hard to ask for help and hard to reach out, but that's part of the growth that's going to happen in college. So I will stop talking and turn things over to my colleague, Kelly Grant.
All right, thank you, Celeste, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on opportunities in Newcomb-Tulane College. And Celeste actually gave me the best segue to talk about the first year experience. And in the college, what we've recognized is that first year students really have big challenges ahead of them. Challenges in moving away from home and challenges of learning to live on their own. But a lot of challenges in the academic area. And so what we've tried to do is construct a first year experience for students to become familiar with Tulane, to become familiar with all of the options that they have. Celeste mentioned this, the options through academic advising where they can explore courses and they can explore their majors. And then career services, they can explore what they might want to do after Tulane. And we like to introduce that as early as possible. So the first year experience is really a comprehensive look at the university. And we try not to overwhelm students, but instead we try to offer them resources as they go along in the first year to make sure that they know all the things that they can do to adjust to college life and to be successful in that first year, which is really important to them. And I know that it's really important to you as well. So I just want to cover a few things in the first year experience that I like to let parents know are available. And in that way, you can have those first conversations that you'll get those calls home in the first few weeks. I don't know what to do about this. I don't know what to do about that. And then you'll get calls around midterm and you'll have those conversations at Thanksgiving and conversations over the holiday break. And I really want parents to be aware of all of the resources available to students because sometimes they don't like to tap into them on their own. So the first one really is our faculty connections. And what we know in higher education and through scholarship on student development is that making a connection with a faculty member is one of the keys to success for students in college. And it's not just success in the classroom, but it's success in feeling belonging, a sense of belonging on campus, feeling like they have a purpose on campus, and understanding what it means to be a member of an academic community. So we introduce students to faculty very early. In orientation, they'll meet a faculty member and talk about our book and reading project and sort of experience their very first college lecture within the first few days that they're on campus. And hopefully they'll meet some students and make some connections, but they might connect with a faculty member that they're not taking classes from, but who they can actually keep in touch with through the year if they want to. We have the first year seminar, which is a semester long course, either in our honors program with colloquia courses or in TIDES. So you might have heard your student talk about selecting one of those courses through the registration process. That first year seminar is really set up again to introduce students to a faculty member that might not be teaching in their major, but has some knowledge, some intellectual property that they might have to share on a subject of their interest and then a subject that was interest to your student. And so that connection can be really important, both with that faculty member and the students who chose the same first year seminar, because those are students who are interested in the same thing as they might be. So we tried to build those connections. Along with the first year seminar, every single first year seminar gets a peer mentor. And Celeste also mentioned the peer mentoring program. This was established in 2016, and we've had wonderful success with it. What we found at Tulane is, and I think this won't come to a surprise for anyone, students like to talk to other students rather than maybe the adults on the campus. And so talking to another student who has been through their first year, who might be in a similar major that a student is interested in, and then having just navigated that transition to college before they did. So putting peer mentors in place, having them easily accessible to students we found has really helped students in that first year transition. And so we really encourage all students to view their peer mentor as an older sibling, as a trusted friend, as someone that they can turn to, not just for advice on how to navigate the campus, but also advice on resources that are available to them, which we always tell them about, but sometimes they don't hear it when we tell them. But these peer mentors are armed with all of the information that they need, that they can give to a student who is seeking help through the tutoring center, through supplemental instruction, a student who might want to think about the counseling center or might need to be assessed at the Goldman Center. And so those peer mentors can really be a big help to a student. And they can also advise them on how to navigate Mardi Gras and other things that we have that are unique to Tulane and come with special challenges there. The reading project is something I already mentioned, and that is the first time that your student will engage in college level discussions. Some of them might have taken some college courses before they enter, but not many. And this is a time when they can really get a feel of what a seminar and what a book discussion and how to wrestle with ideas and how to think about big things. This year's book is a wonderful choice. And so I think that they should enjoy it. They should be reading it. If you're taking summer vacations and you don't see a book in their hand, or you don't see them looking at an iPad that has Audible or whatever on it, then make sure that you think about that, because they should be reading right along so that they can participate in that first meeting with a faculty member. The other thing that we've constructed, and we found this to be really helpful for parents, and you should have access to it, to a PDF file, and I think that Penny Wyatt is going to make sure that you have this, is something called the Friends of the First Year. We talk a lot about things. You see residential faculty mentors listed on this slide, and also academic advisors and success coaches. They have resident assistants and advisors in the residence halls. They have peer mentors, and they have mentors in other areas too. We've put together a comprehensive booklet that lays out each one of those resources for students. It explains what the resource is. It explains how to get in contact with them. It explains what the resource can be really helpful with and what their role is in the life of a first-year student. And we also find this to be really helpful for first-year parents. You can flip through when you get that first phone call and your student doesn't know what to do and is facing something. The Friends of the First Year booklet can really help guide your student to the right resource, and it can put that tool in your hands as well as our staff members on campus. I mentioned the residential faculty mentors, and that's one of our favorite programs. We have faculty members from all different disciplines, all different schools across campus, and they staff the first-year residence halls. They hold office hours in there. They have different programming. And the goal of that is to really just put a faculty member who isn't in charge of one of their classes, but some of them might be, in a place where students can just walk up and talk to them. And what we find there is it really helps break down that wall between students and faculty. Maybe students are nervous about going to a faculty member's office hours, which can be really informative and very, very helpful. Dealing with a faculty member, interacting with a faculty member in the residence hall in an informal setting can really help a student find their way to those office hours with their instructors of their classes. It's gotten a lot of good feedback from both the faculty who participate, who really enjoy it, and also the students who have them in their residence hall. So please encourage your students to walk up and engage with the residential faculty members. They're really there for them. We also have things like Mondays at Musafir. Musafir Hall is where academic success coaching, academic advising, and the Career Center are physically located. Although our advisors and success coaches also go out onto campus and meet students where they are in their residence halls and also in the student areas. But Mondays at Musafir is there to bring students to Musafir Hall, to get them familiar with its location, to meet particular staff members. We usually spotlight an office from Newcomb-Tulane College to have a table outside. We tend to give them swag and give them t-shirts and or hats and or anything else. And we also give them some kind of foods. There's always some kind of cookie or treat. And really, it again is just to break down that initial barrier of what do I do at Musafir Hall? Why would I go there? And so a student doesn't miss out on all of the resources that are really available in that building and available to all students. And then finally, the resource connections. That is something that we carry as a theme for the whole first year. We have the goal of every single first year student knowing every single resource that's available to them by the end of the year, knowing how to connect with it, knowing how they can use it so that when they launch into their sophomore, junior, senior year, they have a really good idea of how to get engaged with resources as they move along their academic programs. And that's very, very important. We don't want a junior wondering, oh, I wish I would have gone to the study abroad office and gone abroad this year. We want them to have that information early, and we want them to know how to access it. And so the first year experience is a foundational year, and it's a year when we do give them a lot of information, but we try to give it in, spaced out so that the students get it when they need it. They might hear it after hearing it a few times first. And it only begins with orientation and really carries all the way through May at the end of their finals of their first year. And then we send them into their sophomore year. The other new feature that's not mentioned on the first year experience slide is that we have a first year advising team. And so after a lot of consideration and a lot of thought, we really know that first year students have different needs than upperclassmen students. And so we now have a special advising team assigned to only first year students. They can help students explore majors. They can also help students get connected with resources. And they're a specialized team that will only work with first year students, but then really fully prepare students to work with advisors as an upperclassman as they progress through their degree. So that's a new feature that will just be launching this summer. And when your student receives their advisor assignment, that will be the permanent assignment sometime in July, that person will be a member of the first year advising team. So I hope that gives you some overview of what students can expect in their first year and how hopefully it'll help you as well. And we're always here to answer your questions and to help in any way that we can, because you're our partners. Once your student gets to campus, we really consider the parents our partners in supporting them through their first year and beyond. So I'll turn it back to Penny.
Okay, so before we start taking your questions for our panelists, we want to remind you that the goal of this particular series of webinars is to provide families with some background information about what students are likely to face, some of the elements of the first year, and have you help your student think about these things before they even arrive on campus. They've been engaged in doing the modules for their new student orientation preparation. Most of them by this point in the month of June will have met with their advisor and registered for classes. They had a module already about academic integrity and the core curriculum. So they're acquiring this knowledge. And so it's a good time for you to kind of engage, prompt a discussion about these different aspects that we've provided. So the questions that we've offered to guide your follow-up student family conversation about academics are these, and you don't have to worry about writing these down. They'll be sent to you in a follow-up email. So these are some, just conversation starters that we've put together for you. So you can ask your student, what are your strengths and challenges in managing your time, planning your work, accessing support, and tracking your assignments? What strategies will you use at Tulane? Another question to consider, if you get a disappointing grade on an assignment, test, or in a course, what academic resources will you seek out? Another question, what will you do if you're not sure what is allowed in completing an assignment or taking a test or exam? And the last one is, how will you build your curricular and co-curricular components to create your own Tulane experience? And I'll just make a point that we use the term co-curricular when we're describing those things, because your student may have, been prompted to build up a whole resume of extracurricular activities. So those might have been outside of class, outside of their school environment. We really think about these enrichment activities in a really broad way as integrating with the things that they are learning in their courses, in their field of study, and their major, and they complement each other really well. So that's why we do use the term co-curricular components. So now is the time when you can submit your questions in the Q&A section. And so I'll start taking these, and Kelly and Celeste will answer those. So the first one, as I mentioned, somebody asked, where can you find the recordings of all the Zooms if you haven't been able to make all of them? So they are on the Family Programs website, and that's just families.tulane.edu. Look under the Communications tab, and you'll find a special tab for webinars and tutorials, and you'll see the upcoming ones for which you can still register, and you'll see an archive of all of the recordings and PDFs for the ones we've already held. So the next question is, our son has ADHD in a low-grade way. He was not required or found to be qualified for support services during high school. What option would he and we have at Tulane to assess the potential need for him to receive any accommodations to support him if needed at Tulane?
I can go ahead and take that question, Penny. So the Goldman Center is the center where we assess and evaluate students for academic accommodations and then provide those accommodations, which include working with a learning specialist or having special accommodations met around testing. So the very first step is to get an evaluation by the Goldman Center. And Penny, I'm sure, is going to send you a link to the Goldman Center, right? I know you probably have it in other emails, but connecting with the Goldman Center directly, they can give you the information on how an evaluation would go and how testing would go. And then once that's in place, the professors at the university and everyone that works with your student has access through your student to those accommodations and what they are. And then the Goldman Center assists in making sure that the student gets those accommodations. Another resource too is our success coaching area. Success coaches work with students with ADHD. And so that's another resource. It's not accommodations, but it is another resource for students to get coaching around having some strategies to best, go to their classes and take notes, and then someone to talk to about some of the challenges that they're facing. And the success coaches can also be a wonderful resource to help them find other resources as well.
And we did have a family webinar on accessibility at Tulane at the end of May. So if you'd like to go again to that archive on the families.tulane.edu website, you'll see that information, and there's a PDF there if you want to just go through the slides really quickly to kind of access those different links to the parts of the accessibility website, so that you can see where a student can submit a request to be evaluated for those accommodations, and you'll find out more. So their website is accessibility.tulane.edu. So you'll get some more details about that. So the next question is, how are pre-med requirements managed into the curriculum?
I can talk about this a little. We don't have a sort of definitive pre-med major, but we have sort of a pre-professional set of advisors, and also there's a prescribed sort of set of courses that students take that are going to set them up for success when they want to apply for and go to medical school. And so the best contact for your student there is their academic advisor. And they will be able to work with your student to based on any courses any AP classes they may have already taken, for example, but to see sort of what classes does your student need, and then sort of map out if not a 4-year plan, then at least a plan for that first year or that first, 3 semesters or so that the pre-med students are taking those general chemistry, organic chemistry, calculus, these classes that they are going to need to then be able to take the higher level classes in those areas. But again, there are a variety of paths to medical school, and Tulane offers, assistance for students in a whole variety of areas. And so I would just recommend that students let their advisor know, this is what I'm thinking right now. I think, I might want to go to med school, and then the advisor will take it from there.
Okay, so another question that I think is a great one is, how hard is it for a student who does not live on campus to make connections? So this, we do have some local students who are not required to live on campus, and I'll just start by saying that taking advantage of the ritual and weekly community building activities like the Mondays at Musafir that Kelly mentioned is an excellent start. Start making a habit of being at the same place every week at the same time, so you start to see the other people who are at the same place every time. And then before I'll turn it over to my colleagues here, I'll just say that those other things that we've talked about that are baked into our freshman year experience, like the first year seminar, allow students to have this other set of potential friends and connections to other students. That is a different pool of people than, say, the residence hall floor that they live on. So there's all kinds of other ways for students to kind of make a connection. And I'll let Celeste and Kelly mention some other ones too.
I couldn't agree more, Penny, about taking advantage of the Mondays at Musafir and some of the other events on campus. Their students will find something every day of the week that that will sort of introduce them to different folks. And so, on Tuesdays, for example, Tuesday afternoons, every Tuesday is something we call Global Cafe. And that is for any student. We say any globally minded student. And that's where we celebrate different cultures and different festivals from around the world, for example. And usually there's good food there. But those sorts of events that happen either kind of every week, or there's also like big events like homecoming and different things like that that happen throughout both semesters. But I would say the biggest piece of advice for students that are living off campus is to spend as much time as you can on campus, especially in that first year. But there are spaces all across campus so that you can, find a place to stay and study between your classes, for example, or, the library is a great place for that, but also the student center, the LBC, and and so the more time you spend on campus, the more opportunities like that you're going to encounter.
I would just add one thing, and that is pay attention to the email. Students need to read their emails. That's unfortunately one of our prime ways of communicating with them, and they tend to overlook that. Also, follow first year experience on social media. Follow the clubs and things like that you like on social media, and attend the activities fair. Those are great places. Join clubs. You might not live on campus, but you can certainly join any of the clubs, any of the organizations. You can get involved in leadership positions. You can become a peer mentor later in your second year, but in that first year, really try to expand. I encourage students to expand their interest base and really explore things. And they can do that whether on campus or off campus.
And I'll mention a piece of advice one of my colleagues started offering families several years ago that I like to repeat. You might have a student who's a little hesitant to get involved at first. They might think, oh, I really need to focus on my studies. I don't want to get overcommitted. And you might have had a student who, was, in a different place every different day for, some other kind of activity outside of school. And so you're concerned that they manage that and they're concerned with how they manage that, or they're just reluctant to kind of take that first step. And so one great piece of advice is to encourage them to go to that activities fair, which happens within the first 2 weeks. They'll be able to meet upper class students who are staffing tables about their group, and they're eager to sign them up and tell them about what their activity involves. But a good strategy for them to employ is to try to join something that's familiar to them. So if they were on a sports team, then get involved in an intramural team in the same sport, or continue to do community service in a volunteer kind of capacity if they did that. There's all kinds of things that they could do, but then also encourage them to do something that's completely new, because doing something that's familiar will help them feel confident about joining and feel like they've got a common frame of reference already with other people in that interest. But as Celeste mentioned, this is the time when they will have so much opportunity to explore new things. So tell them to look outside of their comfort zone and try something new. The novelty of something they've never done before might be what really hooks them and encourages them. So that's a good strategy to employ in that initial first semester. The other thing that I'll mention, and this is all outside of academics, but it is one of those things that can really just contribute to a student feeling at home, like they belong, and connect them more deeply into the university. And that's to look for a part-time job. And that also might be something that you might think, oh, maybe not their first semester, they've got so much to learn. But we absolutely find that for students to have a part-time job on campus is really useful for them. It can sometimes help them manage their time when they've got so much less structure in their lives when they're starting at the university than they had when they were in high school and everything was so structured. So having to build that in and meet that commitment and do that job can be helpful for earning some spending money, but also just for helping them kind of frame their days. None of those jobs are going to be 40 hours a week. We employ lots of different student workers so that we can have people work 8 to 12 hours or so per student. So that can be a really useful thing. It also means that they will be regularly seeing somebody like Celeste or Kelly or me who cares about them. And so it's another way to get them kind of connected to the university and see it from a different side. And I think all of those things contribute to setting them up for success as a student. So they feel more comfortable, more integrated into the community. They're going to hear more about the resources that help them as a student and can help set them up for success in that realm of their life at Tulane. So I'll kind of put out a last call for questions. We do have one question that's not related to academics. There will be information going out to all families through the students' email about shipping items to their residence hall, and what how that whole process works. So it'll be sent to students' Tulane email addresses, and actually a hard copy packet will also come to the students' permanent home address. So that's coming in the next week or so. So watch for that. And then that information comes from mail services. If you needed to ask anybody about that, you would email mailbox@tulane.edu. So last call for questions. We appreciate your participation with us this evening. And we're so glad that you're interested in supporting your student by learning more about this part of their academic journey. I'd like to thank Kelly and Celeste for their time tonight and offering their information and their insights. And I'll just give both of you a chance if there's any last thing you'd like to say or piece of advice or want to emphasize something that you mentioned, you can do that now.
We're just looking forward to welcoming the class of 2027. So we're here to answer any questions you might have, and you can contact us. We're really happy to help, and we're very, very excited to welcome new students always.
Yeah, I echo that, and I hope that you and your child are as excited to come as we are to welcome them here.
So families, I will include the links to the Goldman Center and that earlier webinar that we had about that topic, and a link to the book for the reading project so you can make sure that your student has acquired that. It is important that they read that before they arrive, because that conversation with the faculty member and a group of students about the book that Kelly talked about will happen in that first week before classes even start. And then I'll also just make sure that you get the links to look up the earlier webinar, so you can get caught up on those if you weren't able to join them live. So if you have any last comments that you want to type in before I close, you're welcome to do that. But we always welcome you to send your feedback about the webinars, or if you have any questions that arise later, send them to families@tulane.edu. That's families plural @tulane.edu. And I will forward those on to the appropriate staff member to get back to you with an answer. So thanks, everyone. We appreciate your time. Have a great evening.